caught up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. That's John Cornell, Shane Matthews on a Monday, kind of a tough Monday morning here, JC.
It is. It's such a tragedy to hear what happened to Kobe Bryant, 41 years young, and his daughter Gigi, along with 3 others in a helicopter crash.
Well, it was a total of 9 people.
Oh, it was 9? I thought it was 5.
They have not announced the other people yet.
Okay,
It's
well,
a total of 9.
There was a big crew of people in a helicopter in the fog of Southern California.
Going to AAU girls basketball tournament
with his daughter. Kobe Bryant was just, I mean, he was one of those 3 or 4 guys you could put up on the mountain there in the NBA. LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan, and
well, those would definitely be the ones kind of in our era,
right? In your age,
yeah. You're a little bit older, so you're probably Wilt Chamberlain type, Bill Russell.
Not that old, but I saw some Boston Celtics, LA Laker games. Magic Johnson, Kareem, obviously, but Kobe Bryant was just tremendous. And he and Shaquille O'Neal played together, and I think together they won 3 championships. And Shaquille O'Neal had some tweets last night after this. He says, "There's no words to express the pain he's going through with the tragedy of losing his niece Gigi and his brother Kobe Bryant." He says, "I love you and will be missed. My condolences go out to the Bryant family and the families of the other passengers on board." He's feeling horrible. But what he said was Kobe was much more than an athlete. He was a family man. And that's what he and Shaq had in common. He said, "I would hug his children like they were my own, and he would embrace my kids like they were his." His baby girl, Gigi, was born on the same day as his youngest daughter, Miara, which is Shaq's youngest daughter. So they were born on the same day. And 13 years old, it's a true tragedy, way too young to be taken in this life, which is short as it is. But 41 years old, and he was, in those 41 years, one of the best that ever did what he did. Mm-hmm. And I hated hearing that news yesterday. I was playing golf. I was on a golf green, and the fellow I was playing with said Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. And the 4 other guys looked at each other and was like, "Shut up, dude. Why would you say something like that? They're trying to mess up our putt." Because it's just not believable, right? Until you know it's believable, until it's confirmed.
It's one of those deals where you'll always remember where you were when you heard the news.
I mean, this guy was so good at what he did, and he was such a leader and such a winner. And some of the things that I remember about Kobe Bryant was that when you listened to him on the radio, if you weren't watching him on TV and you heard him talk, he sounded a lot like Michael Jordan. The way he enunciated his words, the way he talked, it was almost like the same guy for me listening to him. And a lot of the things that Michael Jordan was special for, I think could be said for Kobe Bryant in their intense desire to win and be a champion and be a leader of his team. And that's why I thought he was so great, because of how, not just how good he was, but how intense he was. You knew that when that game was coming down to the wire and there was a minute left and the Lakers were inside of 2 or 1 point, he was going to get the ball and he was going to go ahead and win the game for the Lakers. And that's kind of what he did.
Yeah. What was interesting is I was watching a lot of the coverage about him last night, that they were doing specials on ESPN and ABC and stuff. And I couldn't, I was like, okay, I need to change the channel, but I couldn't, because what was amazing is they showed an interview from LeBron Saturday night in Philly, where Kobe grew up. LeBron broke some of Kobe's records. Okay. I can't remember which ones they were. So he's going on and on about how Kobe, what Kobe did for him coming into the league. He talked about the first time he met Kobe was when he was playing in like a high school basketball game in the Philly area. Kobe brought him some shoes, some of Kobe's shoes to wear. Well, LeBron wears I think he said a 15. Kobe wears like a 14. He goes, but I wore them no matter what.
Yeah.
And he's going on and on and on about what Kobe did for him. And then the very next day, he's gone.
He's gone. And it's how fast it can happen. And it can happen to any of us. And certainly, I don't know. I mean, there will be more details on how or what truly happened with that helicopter. I was not aware, though, that there were 9 people on. I thought there was just 5. But regardless, it's a horrible tragedy. And, the sports world loses one of its best. And so with this, you move on. Life is about the living. But I will say that Kobe Bryant will be remembered forever as a Los Angeles Laker and a great a great player, and certainly, as Shaquille O'Neal has said, a family man who had all these kids, and they're so young, and he was so young. And that's the big thing for me that hurts the most, is that these kids will not have their daddy. And so that is horrible. And I don't know, what else can you say? It's miserable to think about, and it's a terrible tragedy. So
yeah, it is. And then Mark Cuban came out.
I like that guy a lot.
Mark Cuban said that no Dallas Maverick will ever wear number 24 again. It wouldn't surprise me if the NBA says, they did it with Jackie Robinson. The last person to wear 42 was Mariano Rivera.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'd be surprised if anybody wears 24
right.
after this year.
Kobe also wore 8.
Mm-hmm.
And
they did the 24-second shot clocks violations and the 8-second backcourt violations. They did every NBA game did it last night, the very beginning.
I mean, he meant a lot, and he certainly will be missed by the basketball community and all of those and all of us who love sports and love to see winners play and champions do it over and over again. And that's what Kobe Bryant did. He was not just a one-and-done guy. He was over and over and over. Didn't go to college. He was just like LeBron. They just went straight from high school and became a pro. And, man, this was just tragic.
Hard to believe. If you got any thoughts about Kobe Bryant, welcome to text the program and on the Titan MRI text line, 352-353-7465. We'll talk more about throughout the show about Kobe, but some other things that happened over the weekend. Before we get to college basketball, JC, the PGA Tour, Mark Leishman beat your guy, John Rahm. So we're going to give you 1 point.
I get a point, Taylor. Mark it.
You get a point because you finished the highest. If your guy would have won, we're going to get 4 points or 3 points.
He just came out with that.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
The contest by QB. I love it. Well, that's good. So I had a guy up there at the top. It's my fault for not watching this last night. I went to a fundraiser for Buchholz High School Baseball, and I'll talk about that in a moment because I want to mention some things. But I missed the tournament. I didn't watch it. I recorded it, and I just missed it because I rushed off to this fundraiser at Embers last night for Buchholz Baseball. And anyway, at any rate, the tournament is what I wanted to watch. So I'm glad you told me who won. I didn't even know. But it's not like I would have sat around today on a work day, on a Monday, and gone back and watched it. So thank you for that. But I really didn't know who won.
Yeah.
But how did Tiger finish?
He was top 10 maybe. I don't really know. It was a rough day for everybody that participated in sports yesterday. Gators also got a commitment from transfer Justin Shorter, who's a 5-star from Penn State, wide receiver. He's going to be a Gator. Hoping to have Zach Albaverdi on tomorrow to talk recruiting because Wednesday is the official signing day.
No, it's a week from Wednesday. It's the first
right.
Wednesday in February.
Gosh.
So call, get the.
That's my mistake.
But here's who we can have. If you want to have Zach, that's great. But I met with and talked with Florida defensive coordinator Todd Grantham last night, who he and his wife Paige were at the Buchholz fundraiser at Embers, and Todd was
his kids on the team going to Mississippi State.
Right. Yep. He will talk about that, and he will be more than happy to join us on the show on the Titan MRI.
Why did I think signing day was this Wednesday?
Your calendar's a little off, but that's okay. You're excited. I
was all messed up.
He did say to me that Florida's pretty much locked up. There's really not much room to sign anybody else. Florida has gotten what Florida's got. But we will talk to him tomorrow or Wednesday whenever you guys get together and set it up. But he will be our guest. He's a really very friendly guy to talk with, very aggressive. I knew Florida's defense was going to be in great shape when Dan Mullen announced that he was bringing Todd Grantham with him from Mississippi State. This is a coach who's been at Georgia, who's been at Louisville, who's coached at the Dallas Cowboys even. And certainly with Mississippi State had some just animals playing defense. They were really aggressive. They were very good. And Florida's personality on defense, I think, was reestablished when they brought Todd Grantham in. And I thought Florida's defense, for all intents and purposes, was one of the best in the country and certainly in the conference. Grenard was the leading sack getter, if you will, in the SEC for sure. And I think you've got these kids going to the pros now. Then that evolution of player, where you bring them in either through transfer or through recruiting, and then they play and, of course, move on to the next level, is what recruits want to see from coaches that they will consider playing for. Some other news, QB, in the college football coaching carousel or coaching world was the news, and we'll get to Florida basketball probably after the break, but I wanted to mention also the hire of Larry Fedora as the offensive coordinator now at Baylor, where things are happening in Waco.
I texted with Larry yesterday or Saturday.
Did you?
And congratulate him on the new job. And he just texted me back and said, appreciate it. Sick 'em.
Hey, they are all ready to go. I mean, he was a consultant, I guess, at Texas last year, and he really, I think I read somewhere where he was just going to wait for the next head coaching job and gig. But now, in today's college football game, these coordinators are paid so well and have about 1/3 of the responsibility of a head coach, because all they're required to do is basically coordinate a certain unit of the football team and not worry about the rest of it. And they're paid very well these days. And certainly Kevin Steele is I think he's a leading money getter, or the highest paid defense coordinator in the country, Kevin Steele at Auburn. And here's Dave Aranda, who I think made $2.5 million at LSU, going to Baylor and bringing in Fedora. And it makes you think, wow, if I can get that kind of money and worry about maybe 35%, have 35% of the stress as a head coach would have. Certainly, I would want that, and I think with Baylor, with the talent that they're bringing back, certainly would be an attractive position for a fellow who spent last year in Austin. So, congratulations to Larry Fedora. Yeah. You know, Larry. He was one onside kick away from being in the college football championship in 2015. He was there. I mean, Clemson was beat, and I thought they got the onside kick, if I remember that play correctly, in Charlotte. But that was one play from getting to the college football championship. So just don't always criticize Larry for how it ended at North Carolina. Remember how close he got to bring that program to the pinnacle of college football in the Final Four.
Yeah, he's a good football coach, and you're going to see more coaches when they get fired or what have you, get into the analyst jobs for different teams, because those are very low paying jobs, but it doesn't matter to them because they're being paid by their previous employer.
That's right.
And so it's a way for them to stay in the game.
Yes.
You're not allowed to coach technically, but you're still a part of the game, and then you can eventually go and be a coach somewhere. It's just like Florida's had two analysts this year. Ken Zampese from the NFL had been out and was working in the league Coach Spurrier was working in. Dan hired him in July. Well, now he's the quarterback coach for the Washington Redskins. The other, Greg Fry, who left Florida State, is now the offensive line coach at Duke. So you'll see, like Larry Fedora, for example, he was just an analyst at Texas, and now he's back as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I think that analyst thing, as you mentioned, really kind of started when Saban brought in Lane Kiffin, and then, of course, it went from there. A lot of guys became analysts. Mike Loxley, who's now at Maryland, became an analyst. He was eventually promoted from analyst to offensive coordinator once Lane left and Sarkisian left.
Butch Jones is still there.
Steve Sarkisian was also – Butch Jones is still there.
Think about it. Butch Jones is probably even paid about $30,000 or $40,000
from Tennessee,
but he's making all his money from Tennessee.
Oh, absolutely. And so I see the angle there. And Aranda also brought in George Munoz as the passing game coordinator from LSU. So he came from LSU. Did you know that?
Was he an analyst there?
No, he was he was a guy who worked on the offense with Brady and Ensminger. Okay. So Aranda is bringing that LSU flair, without, of course, the quarterback, but bringing that LSU flair. I mean, one of the things I think about is, oh, and by the way, speaking of LSU, Coach O signing on Friday a contract worth $42 million over 6 years. So that's just about $7 a year, almost Jimbo Fisher kind of money and Nick Saban money. But he is a national championship winning coach, and he did so much more than just win 15 games last year. I mean, we all know, QB, and you will talk to this, but they're not going to have another year where some guy throws for 5,700 yards and 60 touchdowns. They're not going to have another season like that. It's hard to maintain that. But what he will do is keep them relevant and keep them in the picture, I think, at LSU, certainly, with the losses that they're having. It's kind of what Alabama's had to live through for the last 10 years. You have to just maintain and be relevant and be in the picture, and that's what LSU is paying them for.
Well, LSU's always had players, no matter who the coach was.
Athletes.
They just had to have the right person, and it seems like Coach O, with his love for the state of Louisiana and LSU, they got
is
the right
Tiger.
guy, and he does it the right way. He lets his coaches go coach. He's more of the CEO type.
Yeah.
He'll go down and work with his defensive lineman every now and then, but
You know a guy that did that here.
He's not a guy that's going to call any plays. Trust me.
Well, no, certainly not. But your point of letting the experts do what they do, who started that deal in the 90s? And certainly I thought Coach Spurrier was really good at bringing in guys, letting them take over their aspect of it, as long as he took over the overall aspect, but more importantly, the offensive play calling and scoring points aspect
speaking
of
of
the
him,
team.
I believe I'm correct on when I say this. You talked about how Saban lost so many assistants and all this. Coach Spurrier really didn't lose many assistants except his defensive coordinators.
Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I want to say every SEC championship he won, he had a different defensive coordinator.
You have to talk to him about that.
I'm pretty sure.
Ask him
Think about it. And 90, he had Jim Bates.
Yeah.
After
Coach
1 year,
Bates.
he was gone to the NFL.
Right.
And then he had Zucker.
Yeah.
Okay. He had Stoops. He had, what's the guy that ended up going to Marshall?
He had Bobby
Pruitt.
at Marshall. Yeah. No, I get it. And I think that's what happens when you win football games, is that all of a sudden these other programs around the country want to look at the teams that are winning and say, hey, I want that guy to run our program because he's going to bring some of that.
I just don't
success.
think, I think nowadays you're not going to have as many defensive guys being hired.
We got some Facebook Live posts. Josh Fuzzy Zeller, I should know. Okay, that was last week. We talked about that. Rick, oh no, the guys on the show. Gene, good morning, fellas. Love the Navy sweatshirt. Well, I got this in Philadelphia from the fella that I went with. Beautiful Joe and Jody brought me to the Army-Navy game, and I bought a Navy sweatshirt, even though I've got Army pedigree.
All right. Well, JC, we're going to take our first time out here on the program. We'll be back, and we'll talk SEC.
Well, we'll talk about this
Big
basketball
12
weekend
challenge.
we had. Yeah.
We'll be right back. You're listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Gator's Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of it. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Weeby Realtor, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Adams Ribs, The Keys Restaurant, UF Mover Guys, Union Home Mortgages, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, and Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Weeby at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Palmetto Moon, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. Welcome back to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, JC, the QB, talking sports. A rough day here with the passing of Kobe Bryant and all 9 folks on that helicopter ride. Tough deal.
Well, I mean, you know, young people dying is awfully hard to deal with. But he was a special person, obviously, because of what he did. But as I read his tweet earlier in the show, Shaq said he was a great family guy, and so, you know, have his young daughter with him going to a basketball camp or a game or something. It's just heartbreaking. We had a weekend of basketball. Speaking of basketball, here in Gainesville, great atmosphere, fantastic crowd, 11,000 fans, really jacked up and pumped up to watch the Gators play Baylor, and they came out guns blazing and really looked good there at the beginning of the game. I think Baylor went on about a 15-4 run there before the second half started, and then kind of took it from there. But Florida learned a lot, I think, in this game. They lost by 11, but at the same time, they saw a team that was better on this night, and certainly Florida has a lot of things to do to get themselves ready for the postseason, which they will be in. But Baylor is probably the best team they will have played all year, or will play all year. And certainly I think Baylor has separated itself from the rest of the college basketball world, which has kind of been a little crazy, as the top team right now. I think Gonzaga is pretty flashy with their record, but they haven't played some of these teams Baylor has. I mean, Baylor's won at Texas Tech. They've won at Kansas. They've won now in Gainesville, which is a very hard place to win. And so you would think that right now Baylor looks pretty good. Now, the basketball season extends all the way through the end of February, and that seems like a long time from now. It's at least 30-some-odd days. And certainly then the first week of March is when we get going with the tournaments. But what did you think of the game? First and foremost, your overall impressions of the Gator game against Baylor. The SEC Big 12 Challenge ended up 5-5, so it was a tie. Some close losses. Mississippi State loses by 1. I'll get to those other games, but let's hear your initial thoughts on Florida-Baylor.
Well, I thought we would have played better than we did. Here's what I'll say. This has nothing to do. It doesn't matter if we had Adolph Rupp coaching this basketball team. Baylor's a better basketball team. You know what I'm saying?
What brought out Adolph Rupp?
Well, I mean, he's one of the all-time greats, right?
Old racist. Yeah. Anyway,
but my point is, I don't care if Billy Donovan was coaching, Mike White, Norm Sloan,
right? Okay,
you name it, Calipari.
Yeah,
they are a better basketball team than we are. Simple as that.
Yes.
But the biggest issue right now with this basketball team, JC, is we can't shoot. Yeah. If you can't score, you cannot win. And the difference in the game was we lost by how many? 11?
11, yeah.
Baylor goes 9 of 19 from the arc.
Yeah.
We're 4 of 18, okay? That's a difference
less than
in 5. That's 15 points right there, okay? We're ranked, but going into the game, we were ranked 172nd nationally in three-point percent. 172nd. And it's worse now.
Awful.
So
4 of 17, yeah.
We had open looks. You don't make them. But Baylor was bigger, stronger, more physical than we are, and it is what it is. I have no problem. I thought we'd win the game. I think a lot of the national media thought we'd win the game. The national experts thought we'd win the game. Baylor came here, hit us in the mouth, and they're more physical and stronger, and they're a better basketball team than we are.
Our guy from Sikkim 365 thought they would.
Well, so did all the basketball analysts. I mean, even Vegas thought we were going to win the game.
Right, they were favored. Florida was. No, I'm with you. Nembhard, 16 points for his efforts. I think this shooting thing though. You hit something on that because they've got to get
free
better.
Free throws are bad.
69% in this game, 24% from 3-point land, and 44% field goal percentage, which was the same as Baylor's, by the way. But Baylor had 55 shots. So really, Baylor and Florida shot literally the same field goal percentage.
Baylor made 5 more threes.
Baylor made the threes, as you said. Had a few more assists, and offensive boards were good for Baylor. They had 13 offensive rebounds, 37 total rebounds in the game, which is 11 more than Florida. So as you mentioned, bigger and stronger. Well, certainly they showed that underneath.
Well, we talked about it. When we talked about them before the game. Baylor's program is made up of what people say you shouldn't have your program made up of. All transfers. The entire starting 5 and coming off the bench played elsewhere. And they're just bigger, more physical, they're tough, and they're old.
That does matter.
But it's if people say you shouldn't build your program off transfers, Baylor does it every year, and it's paying off this year.
Guess what though? They're playing Wednesday night at Iowa State,
and they'll struggle.
They will be challenged in that game, and Iowa State is an unranked team in Ames. So you say, well, why? They're 9-10 and they're awful. Iowa State is a capable team. And that conference thing gets to you, and this will be Baylor's second straight road game. I don't know. I mean, maybe Baylor wins. They probably will. But Iowa State will give them a game. Even though Iowa State is a 9-10 team, they're very good at home. So that could be a tough trip. for Baylor. We'll see how it goes. It's still early in the season. But for Florida, what's next, QB? We've got
Mississippi State tomorrow night.
Back to the conference,
which
right?
is a team I wish we weren't playing tomorrow night because they're a scary team.
They can play.
They are long and athletic
yes,
and are very, very good. They're a lot better than the record indicates.
They are, and they had a game at Oklahoma. The game was actually played in Oklahoma City, which is just north of Oklahoma's campus, about 20 miles north. 30 miles north. The game was not, so the atmosphere was not what you would consider an on-campus atmosphere, so to speak, but Oklahoma City was where they played them, and they were trailing for just about the entire second half, but had a chance to win the game and missed a last-second buzzer-beater shot from the top of the key that could have gone in, hit the back of the rim, but they lose 63-62. So they will bring in some players. Look, Mississippi State is a team that's, I think they're 2-3 in the league, but maybe they're 12-7 overall, and they're very capable and dangerous, as you said, QB. So that's a tough matchup for Florida. We'll see how it goes. In the SEC Big 12 Challenge, you had Auburn winning by 4 at home against that Iowa State team. And again, Iowa State loses by 4 at Auburn. They're good.
But with less than 3 minutes to go, Auburn was up like 14 and kept turning it over and made it a close game.
That's right. West Virginia had no issue with Missouri. They won by 23 at home. The Oklahoma game, as we mentioned, by 1. LSU, another team that was traveling. They had a huge lead. They were at Texas. They win by 2, 69-67. Texas hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to make it 69-67, so it could have been 69-64. At any rate, LSU still keeps it going with these close wins, this LSU team. TCU loses at Arkansas. Good win for Arkansas. Jones had 20 points for the Hogs. They win by 11 over the Frogs. Hogs over Frogs, 78-67. Oklahoma State traveled to Texas A&M and won, so they win by 11.
That was the game that I didn't
see that happening. Yeah, I did not see them winning by 11. Tennessee played Kansas pretty tough. They lose by 6, but it was a close game for the most part. And then the other two games, we had Kansas State losing at Alabama, so Alabama gets a win, but they were winning by a pretty large double-digit margin, too. Held on by 3, were out-rebounded in that game considerably. So Alabama still pulls it out and wins by 3. The closest game, I guess, well, not the closest, but one of the most exciting was Kentucky at Texas Tech.
Yeah, and Kentucky blew a late lead of 9-10 points. It's sports. I mean, the other teams have good players as well, but they just couldn't protect the basketball, and Texas Tech made it very close.
Kentucky's 15-4, currently second in the league, 76-74. They outscored Texas Tech 12-10 and won in overtime. So Richards had 25 points for the Wildcats. I don't know, when's Florida playing Kentucky? Is that far from now? We've got Alabama. Okay, so Ole Miss and Georgia played a conference game, an awful loss for Georgia at home to Mississippi, and Mississippi gets its first conference win. And then Vanderbilt, I guess you could say, is the poorest team right now in the conference, losing by almost 30.
Well, they have the best player in the conference that's not able to play anymore.
That hurts. So they were blown out in Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday. 90-64. So we move forward, and we look at tomorrow night's scheduled games, and we'll get into these tomorrow here on the show. But you've got Tennessee hosting A&M. Of course, the Dogs from Mississippi State come to Gainesville. 7 o'clock tip-off. A little bit better than that 8 o'clock thing. But that was quite an atmosphere, I'm telling you. On Saturday night, it was fun here. Missouri, Georgia, 8:30. I saw a lot of your friends at the game. Mississippi plays Auburn at home as well. So the 4 games Tuesday night, and then, of course, they have also 3 more games on Wednesday, including Alabama playing at LSU. Could be a good game there. I think Mississippi State and Florida, we'll talk about that tomorrow, but I think that'll be a really good game to watch, folks. If you want to see good basketball, go tomorrow night to the game. Florida will have to shoot better, though. I mean, they're just going to have to shoot better. Well, Perry's going to be tough to deal with.
We've been saying that all year long. You know, the biggest thing is, like, Blackshear, in my opinion, is not playing up to the standards that I think everyone thought. Not criticizing, but I just think he needs to play better for this team to take the next step. And then from that point on, you got to knock down shots. And we had a lot of wide open shots that we didn't even, I mean, we shot some bad air balls from distance the other night. But again, I still think this team will be a tournament team, and we'll see what happens.
Got a text message come in on the Titan MRI text line, 352-353-7465. This is Linda from Jacksonville asking Shane, what was your favorite Kobe Bryant moment as a player for the LA Lakers, and did you watch a lot of his games?
Well,
Thank you
obviously,
for the text.
obviously, God, it's hard to pick. I mean, I'm not a huge NBA fan. I'm not a huge pick one guy and follow his entire career. I did get to meet Kobe one time in Chicago when I was with the Bears.
Then that's your favorite
That would be
moment.
my favorite moment.
That's your
It
favorite
wasn't
moment.
like we sat down and talked, but it was just
fine. You met him.
I did meet him.
How tall was he? 6'8", 6'6"?
He's like 6'6".
Oh,
He's not that much taller. I mean, I'm 6'3", but
Mm-hmm.
he's not as tall as most NBA guys. I mean, he was so athletic and lean.
so you met him in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Cool. What was the Bull? What were they in town for? What did you say?
I can't remember. I want to say it was probably he was at our facility.
Yeah.
I don't remember
He
why.
did a
Maybe
lot-
the Lakers were in town. I don't.
Well,
really
he did a
remember.
lot of that motivational thing. He spoke to a bunch of football
Well, this
teams.
was when he was real
No,
young.
no,
so
I know when he was a
wasn't-
player. Certainly, when you were in Chicago, that was a while back. Well, thank you for the text, Linda.
Yeah,
Thank
we got
you
another
for
text
watching
here.
and listening.
This is from Jesse. He says Kobe died on Sunday. That had nothing else going on, and dominated all the news outlets. I think God wanted to remind all of us to love our kids, and hug our loved ones more.
Well, you don't you don't get time back. That's the one thing I guess you could say. And here's some profound stuff for you here on Pod Up with Matthews in the morning, JC. You don't get time will pass. It always does, and you don't get it back. And they grow up fast. These kids, they grow up so fast. And I have two that are 4 years apart, as do you, virtually the same age. And, you look back and I think, gosh, man, those kids are 24 and 20 years old right now. One's out of college, one's in college, just like yours. And you think to yourself, my God, where did all those years go by? And where was I going? Yeah. So I think it was just, it's just a shame. I mean, this little girl is 13 and she's lost.
Yeah. It's
And the ones who survive and who she leaves behind, they got to deal with this now. I mean, they're going to be living through this tragedy for the rest of their lives. Death is awful, and it's certainly not fair when it's so young. And I think that it's going to be a difficult thing to deal with in that community. And certainly Los Angeles has lost one of their favorites. So and so has the basketball world and the sports world, for that matter. But at any rate, thank you for those text messages, and thank you for those. Thank you for watching. It's a kind of a solemn Monday morning here, but we move on. We have to, and I think there's a lot to look forward to still. QB, that basketball game tomorrow night will be good. The signing day on Wednesday, even though Florida's pretty much locked up, and we're going to have time. Is next Wednesday. We wanted to make sure we're clear on that. The calendar is next Wednesday. I made that mistake last night. I asked Todd when I talked to him at the Buchholz fundraiser. I said, "Are you ready for Wednesday to be over so you can kind of?" Yeah, that's a week from now. I said, "Okay, well, that's right." So I get it. I asked him. I said, "What's it like having some time off, or do you get time off?" He says, "Basically, we have a lot of 4-day weekends. That's kind of how it works. Some staffs and some teams go on cruises and things like this after signing day is over. As we get into the kind of the quiet time for these football coaches. But I'm looking forward to hearing from them. We had a good time last night. That Buchholz fundraiser, I'm going to mention for a moment here, was very impressive. If you think they're having trouble raising money for high school athletics, at least at Buchholz, and I wish this would continue with all the schools in the area, here in the North Central Florida area. I know we probably have viewers from all over America, certainly, but here in the North Central Florida area, high school sports needs help from the private sector. It has to get money, and it has to have these fundraisers. And heads up, and good job, Coach Ron Brooks, Coach Greg Norman, and those folks that run the Buchholz program for baseball. Those kids, we don't talk any kind of spring sports really that much in high school, or any high school sports for that matter, but I think it's important that they get the support from the grown-ups. And there were some grown-ups last night at that fundraiser, and hopefully GHS will have the same success, as will Eastside and some of these other schools here in the area, that will be able to raise money to help these kids be successful with jerseys, with equipment, with traveling expenses, with all the things that go into putting on a sporting event. It is so expensive, folks. You just unless you're really involved in it or your children are involved in it, you just have no idea how much money is needed to go into getting these kids, giving them the chance to have success in sports here in this area.
Well,
it's tough.
It's this county. especially.
Okay, but I mean, I wasn't going to call out anyone.
Well,
but
I have
was
no
just
problem
saying,
doing it.
I know you don't. But what I was saying, and you can certainly have the opportunities. Your name's on the sign here. But I was going to say, though, that it's important for people in the private sector to step up if they can. Even if your kid isn't playing or has already played, support the school that he played at or support another school, whatever you want to do. It was great to see all that money floating around last night. Let me tell you, it was some heavy hitters last night at the Buchholz thing. I had no idea. And I did say this, and maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but I doubt we're going to see a lot of those guys at the games, a lot of those families at the games maybe, who don't have kids directly involved, but it was good to see that they're willing to do some silent auctioning and to do some fundraising to help these kids because they need it to be successful. You have to compete. You know, when they compete with districts that are so spread out now, I mean, they play teams in Tallahassee now that are in their district. When I played baseball at Buchholz, our district consisted of teams that were basically in this county and surrounding counties. Now they're going out to Jacksonville. They're going out to Tallahassee. They've got teams coming up from Orlando and Ocala and Tampa playing Gainesville. And don't think for a minute that they don't raise money in those counties. Orange County, Marion County, Leon County, Polk County, Hillsborough County, Pasco County. These counties raise money and they support their high school athletics. So my soapbox is over on that. But
right.
I thought it was a good night for Buchholz, and congratulations to them.
We got another text here. This is from George in Tallahassee on the Titan MRI text line. He says, in Gainesville, Baylor 72, Florida 61. In Lawrence, Kansas, Baylor 67, Kansas 55. One coach is fired every week on Twitter. One is destined for the Hall of Fame. Maybe Scott Drew and his guys are just that good.
I didn't doubt him. I really didn't. I thought I see those records. I see that record in that resume. Now, I don't think they won by 12 in Kansas.
Yeah, they did.
They did win by 12? Okay, well, I'm wrong.
67-55.
Okay, well, I thought it was closer. But having said
No,
that,
they beat Kansas down.
they took Kansas apart, and that had to shock some of the fans in Lawrence. But they also won at Texas Tech, and that is a tough place to handle. Ask Kentucky. They had to go to overtime. And so that's not an easy place. The Big 12's got some good teams, but so does the SEC. And I thought last weekend or Saturday, the SEC could have easily had a 6-4 day. Easily had a 6-4 day. Mississippi State's ball goes in. There you have it, 6-4 day. Certainly, they could make the case. Well, if Oklahoma State, or rather Texas Tech, had beaten Kentucky in overtime, then we go 6-4. Either way you look at it, the conference is there as good as any other in the country, and that was not the case in the past with the SEC in basketball.
I agree. We got another text here on the Titan MRI text line. It's from Fred. Fred says, "It's Super Bowl week. Who are you picking?"
Well, I'm rooting for these guys.
But you're not picking them?
But I'm not picking them.
Well,
no, man.
Where's your 49er hat?
It's in the mail. If they win, I'll wear it. If they don't, I'll send it back. But
that's how you roll. We all know that.
Taylor, let's go. There we go. We're in Miami now, just like that. Boom. We just went from Gainesville to Miami. By the way, that stadium, and I saw the wonderful and great Pat Dooley of the Gainesville Sun last night, along with the Gator Radio Network's Jeff Cardozo, Big Red. Talked to them at length last night, and I'll tell you, both he and I agree that stadium right there is one fun place to both cover and watch a football game, because this little area right here, QB, I know you're not a stadium guy, but I am, so I'll teach you some things. Mm-hmm. Right here, this little area, this little club level place, it goes all the way around. It's climate controlled, it's beautiful, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to be in the club level at that stadium. But then look at these things.
Well, it depends on what game you're going to.
Well, sure, but look at these things. These are roofs that come out over. This stadium is
it's like a European soccer field.
Right, but it's a 2020 version of what the Dallas Cowboys played in back in the 90s and 80s at Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas, where they had the little hole. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it was covered, and that helps with rain and so forth and heat. You cannot sit in the upper deck in these games in Miami or Tampa and be comfortable in September. It's just not possible. But now in Miami, they've done something about that. So the scores are great. That's a great place for a Super Bowl. The national championship next year that Florida and Alabama will play in is going to be in that stadium. So I think, did that just go over your head?
Florida and Alabama are going to play each other?
Right.
I heard
it's
that.
Possible.
I heard it.
Why is it possible?
It's always possible. But to answer the question, who am I picking? On Monday, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I like both these teams. I love Kyle Shanahan. If I was going to start a franchise, they said, okay, you got enough money to start a franchise. Who's your coach and who's your quarterback? Well, they're both in this game. I'm taking Kyle Shanahan as my coach with Pat Mahomes as my quarterback.
Dear heavens.
And I will beat anybody down.
It's amazing, too. He was 4-12 last year, but he had the injury. And, they say something about Garoppolo. Maybe we should catch this on the break. I'll talk about Garoppolo at the end of this break as we come back on Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. I'm John Cornell, JC, live Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Advertise with us. Come on board and enjoy the fun every day, Monday through Friday. Let's get a quick time out, and we'll be right back.
Time out! Hey, time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Gator's Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of it. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Adams Ribs, The Keys Restaurant, UF Mover Guys, Union Home Mortgages, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, and Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Celebration Point is where Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Palmetto Moon, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
Boy.
We'll see you at Celebration Point where Gators come to celebrate. Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you.
That's right.
Small enough to care. If you want to get involved with the program, it's kind of a tough day for all of us, all sports fans. You can text us at the Titan MRI text line 352-353-7465.
So before the break, I was talking a little bit about Garoppolo, and we'll talk certainly more about the Super Bowl as we go forward. But some of the games that Garoppolo played in, well, all of the games he played in for the 49ers, they won 13 games, lost 3, came very close to going from the first seed to the 5th seed because of the goofy way the NFL does the seedings for playoff games. But he is the kind of guy that really hasn't had to do a whole lot because Kyle Shanahan gave the ball to the running backs in these playoff games. But in the games where he was asked to win for them or basically come through in the clutch, he did it against the Cardinals in a great comeback in that game on Sunday night. I think it was a Sunday night game. And then that game against the Saints, you remember watching that. What was it, 48-46 where they won against New Orleans. He played out of his mind. He was just tremendous. And so it seems like to me that when asked, Jimmy Garoppolo is the kind of guy that can win big games for you, obviously, and that's the kind of guy that can win Super Bowls. Now, Kansas City has got the player. He's going to be the best player on the field at quarterback. But Kansas City's matchup problem, I think, on the offensive line could pose problems for their offense because of how good San Francisco is. Now,
I agree 100% of that because, as we mentioned earlier, I think it was last week, the general manager for the 49ers is John Lynch, who played on the great defenses of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when you go back and watch those Monty Kiffin coached teams, they rushed 4. Every now and then they'd bring an extra guy, a 5-man pressure, but they pressured with their front 4. Okay? Well, that's what the 49ers have done. They've built in the draft their defense based on drafting those defensive linemen. And they're outstanding. Their front 4 is as good as anybody in football. But we are talking about not a dude who's going to be a statue like back there, like a Tom Brady who has no mobility.
Yeah.
We're talking about one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the game.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was pretty mobile.
He was. But let me tell you, Pat Mahomes, he wants to get outside the pocket. He wants to run around because that allows him to use his athleticism and his arm strength, his accuracy, just making crazy plays.
That
That run he had was maybe
great.
the greatest run
Great
I've
play.
seen in NFL history.
For a quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hands down.
I don't doubt it. I think he's the difference maker, isn't he? And
Right. So that's why I understand people talk about, usually when you've had these high-powered offenses against great defenses, the great defenses won. I do agree with that. But he's the exception because he can make so many things happen. He can make throws when his feet aren't planted.
It's incredible the things he's done, and just to think that this is his third year in the league. He's only played 2 of those 3 years because Alex Smith was the quarterback at Kansas City in Patrick Mahomes' rookie season, which basically was spent on the sideline. And then once Alex Smith was let go because of contract and went to Washington, it was all Pat Mahomes' team, and he stepped right in there, and it was as if this guy had been playing for years in the league. He just took it over. That year he had, I think, before this year was even better, was statistics-wise, but this year could certainly be better with results as they try to win a championship for the first time in 50 years in Kansas City since I guess it was 1970 when they won their last Super Bowl, which I think was against the Minnesota Vikings in New Orleans, Louisiana, in Tulane. Let's see, reactions here on Facebook Live. Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. You can also catch this on YouTube and Apple iTunes and Spotify. I tried getting somebody to explain to me what those were last night at the fundraiser. I think they were clear, but I can't remember. Clay,
they weren't then.
Well, maybe I wasn't clear. Clay says, "Good morning. You are absolutely right. What do we write about, Taylor? Go up there. Baylor is a bunch of misfits playing well. Thank you, Timmy from Colorado." Go Bobcats, says Clay. Don't forget about the band's needs as well. Look, it all goes to the program, Clay. Thank you there. Roll Tide. Let's see what else. Freddie says, largest crowd dance. What? Exact
I think it was the largest crowd announced.
Announced.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, Freddie. Good morning. Anyway, thank you for chiming in. Michael says, can't wait for Spurrier's restaurant. Now, what is his involvement? Just name only, or did he build it?
Well, he's very involved with it. I've seen the plans. It's going to be a really nice place. They're going to have an upstairs rooftop bar called Visors, JC.
I love it. That's great.
You think you'll go there?
I'm absolutely going to go there. Are you kidding me? Why wouldn't I go there? That's going to be fun. I mean, that would be kind of like the place where that would be kind of like the place where we just got some.
There's no question to that one, Mr. Dar.
I'll get to that in a minute, our poor listeners. Well, look on Facebook Live. You can see what John Darr, who would win in a foot race between himself and Cooper Carlisle. I think Cooper Carlisle wins by 20 yards. The great former Florida offensive lineman and former Raider and Bronco, Cooper Carlisle. But John, you just stay in there, buddy. I raced him in a foot race on the golf course, and he spun out, and I just blew through 50 yards, beating the QB in the foot race. I
had slippage.
You did have a slippage. Well, you know how they do in the drag race, and those wheels spin, and they spun out. So he flamed out, and I went up there. And the funny thing was, I kept running, and then somehow I had to hit a driver, and I almost fainted. But at any rate, back to what I was saying. What was I saying?
I'm not sure.
Well, this is where you go on the show and you watch it on recording and you back up the little arrow thing on the bottom and try to get back to it. But I can't remember.
We were talking about the Chiefs offense against the great defense of the 49ers.
I don't know. I mean, I'm rooting for these guys big time, but that 49er team, I'm buying them. I'm just buying them. I just think that Garoppolo is good enough to win the game in case they fall behind. But I also think Kansas City's defense, although better, is going to have some problems stopping San Francisco's running game. So, I don't know. Derrick Henry and Raheem Mostert are very different runners, as you know. Henry's kind of like, once you get some momentum going, if he gets through that first level, it's over, right? But if he doesn't, then you can beat him. This guy Mostert's all over the place with Coleman and the other guy, Matt Breida.
Compare the running backs.
Right.
They're totally different.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The difference is it's the offense is different. I'm not even sure who the coordinator is for the Titans. They're so vanilla, and they rely on Henry, play action. Okay, well, what Kyle Shanahan does such a great job of his scheming. You'll see a lot of jet sweep motions, misdirections, play action, and Garoppolo's a pretty good player, and they got good weapons around him. So, I know the Chiefs loaded up to stop Derrick Henry. You're not going to be able to do that against Mostert.
Sure, and I totally think that this could be. I think it's going to be somewhat of a high-scoring game, even though San Francisco's defense is as good as it is. You can score on them, and if Pat Mahomes does the Pat Mahomes thing, but I don't know, Kansas City. I don't know who runs. Hell, he's their leading rusher, isn't he? Or one of them?
Who?
Pat Mahomes for Kansas City. He's up there. So
what's interesting is the two running backs in this game at one time were both on the Miami Dolphins roster.
Oh,
and got cut.
Oh, who? Damian Williams
and Mostert.
Mostert, I think, was cut by 4 or 5 teams. The great Purdue running back that nobody heard of. But, man, that guy can fly. And he's got a great offensive line. I mean, that Staley and those guys up front for San Francisco, I think that's a great matchup for them against Kansas City's defense. Now, Kansas City's defense is better, but I think San Francisco has the answer. And so I think they'll win. But we'll talk about this as we go throughout the week. I'm rooting certainly for the Chiefs. I'd like to see them win. San Francisco has 5 Super Bowl championships. Dallas has 5. New England and Pittsburgh, I think, have 6. So, and certainly New England and Pittsburgh have been to more than 6 Super Bowls because they've lost a few also. But Pittsburgh, I think, has only lost 1. But New England's lost more than 1. But it's just amazing how these franchises, rack up these Super Bowl championship numbers like they do. And everybody else like Detroit and I don't know, the Chargers and some of these other organizations just can't get out of their own way. And yet the excellence should change with the draft and the way it works, QB, but it doesn't seem to go that way because I can't remember the last time the Detroit Lions played in the Super Bowl or the Buffalo Bills. It was so long ago. So certainly I think it's the best Super Bowl matchup we could get. And it does kind of spin off of the LSU-Clemson game for some reason to me because I thought those were the 2 best teams in college, even though I would say Ohio State had an argument. Clemson beat them, or Trevor Lawrence beat them. And then LSU was certainly the team to beat this year, and I'll just say that was probably the best year they'll have and probably will have for quite some time. So,
time will tell.
Time will tell. So big week coming. We will talk tomorrow when we come on the show. Florida basketball. We will hopefully have, if you can set it up, the Florida defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham, who I spoke with last night. Very interesting guy, has been to a lot of different places in his profession to coach and has followed Dan Mullen from Mississippi State here to Florida and has given Florida that identity on defense as the leader of the defense that I think was missing on these teams. Not that Will's defenses were bad. They were actually quite good because they were always out on the field. But I think that nastiness that Todd Grantham brings to the personality of this defense is effective for Florida.
Yeah, we'll talk tomorrow's program. We'll talk, as we mentioned, Mississippi State basketball. It's a tough game for the Gators to bounce back because this is a very talented team rolling into the O'Connell Center. Also, we'll talk more Super Bowl talk. We'd like to get your thoughts on who you think is going to win the Super Bowl as well. And also you can go to potupwithshane.com, send in your picks for the Super Bowl. We'll have a contest for that to win one of these Yeti-style cups from Radware.
Yeah, there it is. Saw him last night too, Radley, my man. Bobcat. Bobcat's everywhere.
I don't think he was a Bobcat.
I think he was.
I don't think he was. I think he's from the Orlando area, JC.
Well, he was a Bobcat last night. Okay. They raised some money for that baseball program.
All right, well, that's going to be a wrap.
I told everybody my number was painted over in the locker room, and they all believe that. Well, hell yeah. I mean, number 3 was memorable. It was a memorable number on the hot corner. On the hot corner. No, I was on the hot corner, but me and George Brett and Greg Nettles on the hot corner. George Brett
was number 5.
Though. Yeah, I know, but we were third baseman.
Hey, that's a wrap on the show. Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your day.
8 o'clock. Have a good one, folks.